Aho, ake, unhipido, YouTube oyate, the YouTube community. I think the YouTube and I don't know what you call it, the age that we live in, disseminating information is so easy to do now with YouTube and Facebook, TikTok. These we can use as tools to communicate, maybe in Dakota, to promote Dakota language, culture. I'm not too knowledgeable in that, although I try to have a YouTube channel. I still have that channel, but there's no content. There was content in it, but I just quit doing that. This was prior to COVID. I started a YouTube channel just on hunting and fishing, outdoor life. I had I don't know, about 50 or so short videos, 3 to 5 minutes of hunting, ducks, geese, bow hunting, muzzle loader, and the regular hunting. I had short videos like that, and this was before COVID. And during COVID, of course, nothing happened. I had a little bit of trapping videos on there too, trapping mink and stuff like that, weasels. Since COVID, I never picked it up. It kind of dampened my spirit, and I've been meaning to get back to that. I still have that channel there, but no content. There was a few videos on there, but I deleted some of them. They're just too old, and the camera that I was using wasn't very good. It can't withstand the cold. It just shuts down. And so I had a hard time making videos in the wintertime. But maybe I'll do that again someday. But yeah, the age of I don't know how you say it, communicating using the phone, YouTube, and all that is here. Maybe we can use them as tools. Wotawe is tools. Wotawe, anything that you this is a tool. This is a wotawe. It's a tool that you use to enhance your daily lives, right? Like utensils and saws, shovels. Those are tools. Those are wotawe. So we could use those as a means of promoting our language. So again, we're here again today. Promoting that very thing, language and culture, as to who we are, who we're supposed to be. Who are we? Who am I? Who are you? We haven't changed our identity. It's just that we don't use it anymore. We take on the assimilated identity that we have, Oswald McKay, speaking the English language, using the phone, and these kinds of things. But we can do both of them at the same time. We can talk Dakota. We can talk Dakota on the phone, make Dakota texts, messages, email in Dakota. We can do everything in Dakota, you know. Other nations, as I have said before, do that. Other nations that come to Canada, become Canadian citizens, they don't leave their culture and their language at home. They still practice it over here. So the question is, a couple of weeks ago, why can't we do that? Why do we have to set aside our identity? And I reiterate those things again today, and hoping that you out there in YouTube world, YouTube Oyate, think about that. Think about who you are, who you're supposed to be. Are you practicing? Or has assimilation taken over your very self, your very image, your identity, and the things that you do throughout the day? So some things to think about. But before we get going again, I will say short prayer asking Creator to be with us again. Those of you that are out there listening, let's all come together and share a prayer asking Creator's assistance. Hechung umptida. Okato wa kantaka ke. Apeto awashtichak. Ake wichuni oyank upi hadina. Awopida yichiche do. Onkake dechirin hiata kape. Dakota I ewachin. Dakota wichoka hadu hewachin dechirin hiata kape. Adina onki epido Dakota nakota lakota oyateke. Ocheti shakonwe. Hena onki epi ake inawashimpe. Onchimpe. Achaherito onki apo. O tokate ki a hechir wichonikta. Awi choi chake dina Dakota ptero. Aya hechir. Atawa kantaka hoye chichi. Ampetu kinde tuwe hoye ni chika unshikida. Oki awo aya hechir hoyawa. Oga hechir tawachin chante tachana riki kutu pihina. Hena apewi chacha aya atawa kantaka. Apetu kinde chir hoye chichi. Aya che tokate ke kabdesya hum. Yok pe yoshke, wawoki a wangshida dinan dechin maunifte. Hena da kod wichoch anke echa. Hena ke unkich umpte aya ato akanta ka hoye chichi. At ka hechit. Onki apo aya hechit. O de hoye chichi. Nehan ure. O dina akiktu jampe o hena. O tawachin o dina. Angshu chake da o chake acha. Ake Dakota wiokchamba dina. Unspeech ichiamba. Ake dina hadu hamani ptedo. Aya ato akantaka tiste da hoye chichi. A chaushima kidega na mechich onga. Adina onki apo aya wopide chichi do apetu kinde. Aho hechite do metakias. So again today we come here. We come to promote the language. I'm always talking about the day, Ampetu kinde. Ampetu is the day. Tokitu, how is it? Well, let me tell you how this day is. Usnike, it's cold. Tatempa, wahihe. Usnike. We heard yesterday through the announcements, weather announcements, that the storm was coming. Ichamana. Ichamana is storm. Ichamana. Ichamana. A storm was coming. And it arrived last night sometime, early in the morning. Ichamana storm. Ichamana storm. You only use this word in the wintertime. There's no ichamana in the summer. Even if there's a tornado or high winds and rain in the summertime, you don't call it ichamana. Only in the wintertime you use this word ichamana. It's windy, it's cold, it's snowing, it's blowing snow, the snow is piling up. That's when you use this word here, ichamana. And that's what we're experiencing today, ichamana. Deitke yotake, uyochpatake, the other province to the west, Saskatchewan, heitke yotake, wa ota hedichpea kap. Wa is snow, ota lots, hedichpea, it delivered a lot of snow, a little bit of rain, magaja, chaga, it's icy. So some activities, I imagine, are, I know in Tatakanaji Oyate, we usually have Thursday activities, but they're canceled. I saw a picture, one of my nieces, Tunjanwa, she sent me a picture. Wa otado. There's lots of snow. So some of those activities are canceled. And here today too, I think the school is closed, I believe. Wayawa TP, Natakape, Tiope Chirieke. Wayawa Waniche, no school. Chankukish Dushdute, the road is slippery. It's still going to Magaju, nach Magajukte. Han Usnikekte, Hina Chagakte. Hecha Hina Natakape, they closed it. Tkadek Shede Takoja made it from town Otumeta. He made it in good stead. He's with us, so we're going to have our usual session. Dakota Gyapte. Yesterday I talked a little bit about history. I think it's a good subject to use history as a teaching tool to what actually happened back then. Ahana hektake wichoichage is a generation wichoichage tonak chachatake. Dakota nakota lakota ocheti shakome tokit kin umpe ha. How did they live? How did they survive? And we can use those as a teaching tool to learn the language. Dakota Iapi de uspenic ichiapte. You're going to teach your language using the history, what's written in history, the actual facts. And it's all in these books. I read a little bit about the agreement between Dakota and the British Crown military alliance, economic and trade. I talked a little bit about that, but maybe I can continue with that, with history. Some of the important, well-known individuals in the back days. Those individuals that made an impact on how we are as Dakota today. Dahan Dakota tokit kid unyakum kinde hekta ke ahana otanka kina, the old ones said things that impact our lives today or will impact our lives moving forward. Ahana take ape take chimpe, their thoughts, their minds, what they said take ape. Tak to kumpe, what they did that influence our lives today, or it should influence our lives today. Why did the Dakota, Ocheti Shakoi, the Dakota, why did they have an agreement with the British Crown? And it's all written in these books here, why they did that. This book here, this booklet starts from 1779 to 1900. There's another booklet prior to that goes back to the 1600s. When the French were here, the French were out in the east. French is Washichu Ikcheka. Washichu Ikcheka is the French nation. They were here prior to the British, what we know as Sagadashi. Sagada is the British. Sagada Oyate is the British nation, the people. Washichu Ikcheka. Washichu means Caucasian, white person. Ikcheka is ordinary. Ikcheka, ordinary white man. And then the Sagadashi, and that's the British. So there's a distinction. So what happened? What happened back in the 1650s when the British were here? I mean, the Washichu Ikcheka were here out to the east. East meaning over there, Quebec, Nova Scotia, over that way. Washichu Ikcheka were there. They claimed the territory as they do. And the British arrived, of course, down there, the 13 colonies down in the United States. And from there, they wanted independence from the treatment that they're experiencing in Europe. So they came over here to new lands, and they wanted to create a new country where there'll be no kings and no queens, and to administer, to the peasants, They wanted they wanted to get away from all that. So they had independence, 1776. But prior to that, the British were here, and in the 1650s, the 1600s, late 1600s, and the 1750s, the 7-Year War. British was trying to take over what the French considered themselves to own here in the western part of Canada. The 7-Year War, it's called. So I believe in those days, the Washichu Ikcheka, the French, during the war between French and Sagdashi, the British, some of the nations, Indian nations over there in the east, were friends with the French. So when this battle happened, some of the nations over there supported the French because they had trading agreements with them. So when the British was here, the population grew and they wanted to take over. Now they had to fight with the French over Quebec, or the province of Quebec, now that area. So there's that 7-Year War, the French-British War. That's when the British, the Sagdashi, Wichashtayatapi, the king, Wichashtayatapi, the king, advised the military to make agreements with certain tribes in these areas, and Dakota was one of them. So during the 7-Year War, Okichi Chumpe, French and the British made agreement with the Dakota to help clear this area on this side of, say Ontario, Minnesota, and present-day Manitoba here. The Dakotas were to keep that for the British to eventually come this way past the Appalachian Mountains. And that is why they had the agreement between the military agreement between the British and the Dakota. And I talked a little bit about that. That was back in 1750s, somewhere in there, 1760s. 1763 is when King Edward made a proclamation, the Royal Proclamation. Yaotai. A proclamation is Yaotai o Yakapi. Royal is kind of like the king, I guess. Woki chunze Iapi. He thought he had this divine right given to him by their God to rule over certain parts of the world. The agreement or the knowledge or the word to go out and conquer and own the land, that sort of thing. So hey. Tawoki chunza Iapi, what he was thinking, what he understood to be, and the proclamation, he's proclaiming that. Yaotai Oyake, the Royal Proclamation. 1763. And that's where the British started taking over territory. But he left some intact. And the Dakota Territory in Canada is a big part of it. He left it intact because he did not have a surrender agreement, or he did not outright purchase it. So it's called unceded territory. Hohina oayake. Those oayake, it's in written form. Oapi. It's written, and it's in these books. It's in these books, the booklets of actual correspondence. Correspondence that's in the archives, wherever in Ottawa, wherever they keep archives. And this individual, a friend of mine, he did some work for the Dakotas and other tribes. And he helped the Dakotas back in the 1990, I think, with the some of the claims. And he's been working at that ever since. And I call him a good friend of mine, my best friend. He's of Scottish ancestry. And he always says, well, whatever the British did to you, the tribes out here in Canada, they did that to us first. They invaded us in Scotland, Ireland. They perfected the way to do it, and then they came over here, and they did the same to you, is what he told me one time. And I believe that. Those are his thoughts. And if you look back in history, Hektakia, you will know that Scotland, the Scottish people were conquered, and there's a lot of wars over there that happened. So it is with us here today too. Hechid uyan kumpido dahan washichu unkagaba odechid dakot ishni dakot wichoch hadoheshni or dahan dechid uyan kump. Because of that, the taking over of land and lives of Ikchewichash, the original peoples of this land, they made us into something else that, through assimilation. So because of that, Dakota, Ieshne, we don't speak the language anymore. Dakota, Wichoch, the culture of the Dakota, we hardly do that anymore. And many of us, especially the Otanka, the elders, we will say, because we don't speak the language, we don't do the culture, we suffer by it. Because those things that kept our communities together, okichia, onshikichida, being helpful, being caring to each other, those are gone now. There's one official, I think it might have been American, that tried to assimilate the Dakotas back in the 1800s. This is before residential schools. He was recorded to comment that they are failing in their attempt to assimilate the Indian. And he says because the Indians they live a communal life. They share everything. The land is not theirs. They claim it's not theirs because Creator gave them to live on the land, to use the land to survive, and they hold on to their territories for the next generation. That's why they say our land, our territory, our land is not ours. But they use that against the Indian or the Dakota today. Well, you have no value to the land. You say it's not yours, so we'll take it over. That's not what we're saying. We can't own it because it belongs to the next generation. That's how it's been since time immemorial, as they say. So that government official said that we're having trouble assimilating, making the Indian like us, because they are communal in their life. They share everything. The land is not theirs. So we're having a hard time assimilating them. What we need to do, he says, and it's written, what we need to do is make that Indian a selfish person. We need to make that Indian a selfish person where he's going to say, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, the land is mine, all this is mine, I'll hold on to it. We need to make the Indian like that in order to facilitate this assimilation plan and practices that we have. So you have to take away the language. You have to take away the culture and instill the washichu-ness, the different way of living into them, so that they can now be like us and be selfish. This is my land. This is mine. That is mine. Make them selfish. So today I see that in what we do today. In the back days, in order to travel around, if somebody was without, like say, like in the 1800s, somebody was without a horse, one of his buddies will say, here, you can have that one there. You don't have to be walking around. You can have that horse. I give you that horse. Today, if I was walking somewhere, an Indian will pass me, and because he's taught the selfish ways, he's not going to pick me up. If he has two cars, he knows that I'm suffering walking down the road in a hot or in a cold. He's not going to say, hey, there's a car at home I'm not using. You can use that car so that you can get around and make your life easier. He's not going to say that today because they made him selfish. But back in the day, that's just the way we lived. So that Washichu saying that we must make that Indian selfish so we can better manage him. Take his language and culture away so we can better manage him. Make him like us. Make him selfish like us. And then our intent, our plan, our work to assimilate him would be that much easier. And guess what? Maybe he is right, because I'm a selfish person right now. This is mine. It's not yours. I'll do this. So that is the mind of the people today. And I see that change. It's evident when you walk around in our community. You know, this is my yard. It's not your yard. It's Dakota yard, given to us by Creator. We're to share it. We're to share things. Will be helpful. We will care for each other. These are the basic characteristics that we had back then. Nothing is mine. If I can give it to you, if I don't need it, if you need it, well, you can have it. I shouldn't say, well, give me $20 for this, you know. But that's what we do today. Well, give me $1,000 for my car, you can have it. Instead of giving it, instead of doing good, I'll become selfish, like a white man, like a Washichu. And that's the big change. And it's in here in our minds to make two individuals into one. It's assimilation. And today the word that they use, wichoye is a word, a thought, a word that the governments of today use. And that word is, what do you call, the favorite word that they use today, I'll remember it after. I can't remember it. It's a form of assimilation. Except the word that they use today, they're fond of using this word today. Anyway, so they made the Indian like the white man, you know. So it is difficult today to be an Indian because we don't know how to be. We don't know how to be Indian. Dakota, the friend, you know. So I just wanted to point that out. The things that they did to the Indian to assimilate him. They took our children away just like in prisons, 16 years. They'll be somewhere. Oh, I once heard one of the elders in one of the Dakota reserves over here. And we were talking about the very subject that I'm talking about, residential school. And he said, imagine a community of no children. A community with no children. Imagine that. That is how we were, he said, back in the day. That is how I grew up. That is how my parents grew up. A community without children. I never thought about it that way. Because those children were apprehended, they're taken. They're put in wagons and later on in farmers' grain trucks, and they'll ship them off to wherever until they're 16 years old. Some of them as young as 4 years old. Chaya umpe, they're crying, holding on to their parents. Parents are crying. That don't matter. They still took them, yanked them out of the arms of the parents and the grandparents, then took them away. That's called assimilation. To make the Indian individual somebody that feels or knows that system is so foreign, they don't understand it, you know. And for 16 years they beat that into them to where they have to concede and say, okay, well, yeah, I'll be selfish, you know. So I'm ranting and raving right now, but that's just how I feel today. So that is history. We all know that, what history done. This morning, nakahachana this morning, because there's a there's a storm coming. I looked out the window, Takarawatu, and Oanya is the window. Takarawatu. See how the day is like. Ampetu kin toketu. How is the day? I had my coffee and sitting there thinking, and I remembered my nephew Tunshkawa, one of the counselors here, our government. I guess he traveled south. A meeting, Omanichi, south. There's talk over there of that famous battle, Okichi Zechumpe, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. Iapi, the Cheyenne people. They did a battle in 1776. Pejisuda, Iapi, the greasy grass in Montana. 150-year memorial celebration down in Montana. This coming year, June 25. I remembered that when I remembered my nephew went down there to that meeting. And that's a history. My family, Teoshpe Onyakape, Ohed, Duwewa, Ohe, Hechi Kichiza Be Ope. Okahe tuweke he konshi wae atkuku he. Konshi ye wohadaka che. Ihona wanita ka wohadaka. Anakupta muke. Ota kihde oyake. Ye atkuku kin ha. Decha portage etka tukted wakpaka hada. Hoheche tipi. Unka oyake kin ha. Hachana wa takachkan hobokin de he ha hinache koshka hecha. Unkan tewe wakap kap. Tewe wa Tewe hedi hi kchi takar wohoda kap. He unkan wag tima hediga. Hode koda akap edako he woa he chunkakape. He chinye ga ish sunkai umatuk te gavektish. He san ewichak yape kunsha hache san ki de Cheyenne hepe, the Cheyenne nation. He kchi wohdak. Tima hediga. Ode hoema heda akap. Decha Tatanka yata ke dechia. Koshka. Dena wichakcho. Enonak de vraketik de taku tokitukta. Ke chinga. Adena kichita wichakcho hechia. Adede kichibidekta akap. Akonsha oyake ki ho he. He wetu e chantu che, hina hina wojupshni che, he chan hedet dueg hedehi. He che timan hediga, maza kang hine kikchiga. Wa aya kichagaba. Ha bikchikat. Wa kapampi dina. Hina kichi wi aya bahan. Hubuk dek shiki hidakape. Shunka wakan num. Wichaya iakap. He yaba hichia ipi. Okichi ze ikta. No piji sada Iapi. Hichia ipi. Head okichi ze pehi haska. Dakota kide wichaki zikta he hitkia. Natanya he hede. Ig han. He ampetu ke June 25 head okichi ze. Unkanwa eg head open. He kichiza be apetu num head han. He yustamahan ake detke hedichu. Detke hedichuga dahan Saskatchewan Iapi. Hechia hedi. Ha head opich e. Head tohaya he han. No Chinupak pa hechia. Hechia hedi. Hechia tohaya unga 1820 he han. Wichuni eke. He tunkanshida wag he kunsha at kuku he. Henakach ana wikse tunskawa eke de tokitku. Umenichi ya kape hini iwohda kapta. Unka he tohoni unkoya kapshini chikunshi hache. Dena tohoni iwohda kapshini hache. Hinach de atayap kini unche. Ahinonach Yuzapte, inoch kashkapta che ache. Hache hina tohoni na nino unkoya kapshini. Unkicha gab ha. Hat kadahan ona ateo yape ha he iae. Iae shning ha he. Hadina ona oya kapo. Atasha ona we machach cheda. Mayuza makashkapsta tokchishina. Ache. That was in the 1990s. He took terek. Hina wekshira nakach ana. Hina show chicha kapi. Toto hantua no ochicha kaptero what he actually did. Ukang like that. Taku techia o techika ichunda hai. Hina tohanto ochicha kapte. YouTube ed ta ink de kachami. De 150-year wokik su hechakapi. De June hechaka. Hacha hina. Ton iahantu kaha hina. Ito overdakik de. Kahechi unkikse aptero dina Dakota kinde. Nakota lakota taku ota kachidogu hiope. We come through a lot as ocheti shakoi. Ohene iwoa hadakikte. Kechami. Oapki dina bedawaga iwoa hadakikte. Kaheche techaki dina storiayaptero. Tokita unkupi, tokit kiduyankupi, tak tokitu. Dina storiapte. Storiapte eche dina katinsia. Dakota ya umpte. Katinsia is solid. When you know your history, hektakia. Tokit kiduyankupi, how did we live? Tak tokonkupi, what did we do in history? Once you understand that katinsia means you're solid in who you are, what you came through. You're solid as a Dakota because you know your history, what you came through. You know your situation today. When you use your mind, you think, you contemplate, and you should figure out where you need to go in the future. But we have to know history first. We did not just all of a sudden hear speaking English. No. We had to fight not to be English. But we're convinced to be selfish like the white man. That word I was looking for was reconciliation. That's a favorite word that the Washichu, the government out to the east, they like using that because of what they did to the Indian residential school, taking language culture away. We're sorry, we're very sorry. We shouldn't have done that. Now that we realize that we made you like us, you're a selfish person now. But you suffered to acquire that selfishness. So we'll make amends, we'll reconcile. Well, where does the word reconcile come from? What does it mean? Well, because they took language away, they took our culture away. They gave us the English language and the English religion from the Bible, Christianity. It goes back to what they call, what I always favorably talk about in the back days, doctrine of discovery, where all peoples, tribal peoples of the world were considered beasts of the field. That's why we don't have value on the land. But that's what they think. But we say, as earlier when I said that we don't own the land. We're to look after it, to get life out of it, and to pass it on to our children. They use that against us. They say, well, you have no concept of ownership of the land, so we'll take it over. So that is where we are today. So doing that, giving us a different language, different culture, different religion, they're very sorry. But the word reconciliation I was talking about, that comes from Christianity. Reconciliation is another Christian form of doing things to us. To reconcile is to make things into one. Assimilation, make things into one. The same thing. They're still going to practice taking our language and culture away through these tools. I call them wotaway, these tools that they have. To reconcile is going to go on. So we have to understand that. They will understand that. So that we can either accept it or resist it. By resistance, I mean taking our language, bringing it back again. Those things that make us Dakota, helping one another, caring for one another, teaching our children to be Dakota, to have rules, to have protocols that make us into a solid family unit. Solid family units together is an oyanke, a settlement. Tioshpires together, so we can have a good community, like in Sioux Valley. We can have a better life, to be helpful, to be caring to one another. So that's a little bit of history. What I was talking about in Dakota earlier, about my grandpa, my great-grandpa, my grandma's father. I mentioned that my nephew went south somewhere to a meeting where they're going to discuss the 150th memorial of the 1876 battle at Little Bighorn. I have in our family, we have an individual, our great-grandfather, like my siblings and I, our generation, we have a great-grandfather that participated at Little Bighorn. My grandma used to talk about that. She said it was around this time. That's why I remembered that story this morning. Around this time, before the planting of any gardens or whatever, before the planting season, she said her father at that time was living around Portage somewhere along the Assiniboine River. And they observed somebody coming. Now, my great-grandfather was a young man that time. And my kunshi wasn't born yet that time. My grandmother wasn't born. So they observed somebody coming. And my great-grandfather recognized him as his brother, his blood brother. This other somebody is a Cheyenne Indian. They had a little talk outside. And then soon enough, my grandpa came in and he said, my brother is here. He come to get me. He told me the Sitting Bull is wanting all his warriors, Akichita, down there. Something might happen this spring. He's calling all the Akichita, all the scouts in the surrounding areas, he's calling them over there. I'm gonna go over there with my brother. He said he come to get me. He told his family that. So they prepared lunch for him, pemmican wakapampi. I talked about pemmican yesterday, traveling food, gives you energy. Took out his Spencer rifle, his guns. He had 2 extra horses, he took those. And bade farewell to his family, and him and his Cheyenne brother, they left. This was they'll be around this time, maybe in May, maybe end of this month, maybe in May. That's when they left, him and his Cheyenne brother. Kunshi used to call the Cheyenne nation San-un, the wearers of gray, or they paint gray. San is gray. Is to adorn yourself or to wear. San-un, that's the word for Cheyenne in Dakota. That's what I was told anyway. So him and his brother went down. And they got down to the area of the Little Bighorn battle, and Sitting Bull had a Sundance. I can't remember, Kunshi didn't say, but they might have been there at that Sundance before the big battle, before the Battle of the Rosebud and those things. But my great-grandpa, him and his Cheyenne buddy, he camped with the Cheyenne on the northern portion of that big camp that was there, where the Cheyennes were camped. That's where he was. And she talks about Reno attacking on the south end. You can hear the bugle, you can hear the guns over there. Observing another military unit coming to meet that one, the northern Cheyennes and the Dakota that were living on the north side. So that's the battle between Custer. So my grandma, she talks about this in the wintertime. She talks about that. I heard it so many times. But she used to caution, don't be telling the story out there, she said. Know it, understand it, and remember it. It's for our family to know, she said. Don't talk about it out there, because your father is still alive, she said. If the story gets out there that he is the grandson of that person that went down there and did a big deed, they might come and arrest him, she'd say. Because they're looking for people like that. They might arrest him, take him to jail. So don't talk about it, she said. So we never hardly talk about it in our lifetime, until my dad said one time, well, I'm old now. Walang de makando. Makan is being an elder, an older person. Walang makando. If you wanna talk about what my grandpa did over there, you go ahead. I'm old now, he said. Makan. It doesn't matter if they arrest me, put me into jail. I'm old anyway, he said. That was before he passed away. So maybe someday, maybe closer to that time, June, maybe I'll tell the story about my grandpa, my great-grandpa, what he actually did at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, so that people will know that the Dakotas in Canada played a major role at that battle. They went down there, took part in the battle, and then they came back again. There's stories after that too. So maybe I'll talk about that story as it was told to me by my grandma. Kunshiwai ki hai, ta ku iwo da ke hai, au kichis ichum hai. Tuktohna wixia, hohera itoto hanto obadaki ktido. Kaichanach umpte. And this is a part of history. That's a part of history, what we had to come through as a nation, Ocheti Shakoi, and to keep that alive, the knowledge of what happened and what happened after that. There's still stories after that. So I'll go that far. Right now we'll have a break. Itogash ozium ki abhehan Okay, maybe 15 minutes or so. Then I'll ask Hankashi to share with you ishto. So hechi tudo ampetu oshte yo hapo doshta ake in 15 minutes time. Ake guptera. Hechi tudo.
Hi, to mitaku Iapi. Naka deit eshi upia wohodake. Tako ota. I wohodake ahana o kichizeke. Battle of Little Bighorn Api na I wohodake how his great grandfather was a part of that. A lot of our people, their grandfathers or great grandfathers, could be a part of that. But a lot of us, we don't know. We forgot about history, because we were being assimilated as what he had said, to look at ourselves and to try and be Washichu, and a lot of us did that. We went to residential school. Some were adopted out. Some, went to school just here on the reserves, but they were not to speak the language or, to do any kind of cultural or traditional things, but to read the books, write down everything, listen to the teacher, what they're talking about, learn their history instead of, our own. So, a lot of us, were twisted in that way to a point where a lot of us were ashamed to be Indians, to be Dakota. I say that because I went to a residential school in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg is a huge city. And there's lots of schools, lots of Washichu kids, so many schools. And I went to one of them. There was a few of us. A whole lot of us lived in this residence, but we were all separated to go to different schools. And because I was raised Catholic, I went to a Catholic school, an all-girls school, where we were made to wear uniforms. And that's how we went to school. So, when we went to school, I felt that I didn't belong there. Because, the Washichu girls, to us, they were just small little Washichu girls. Well, now, Kish, we were about 14, 15 years old. And, they seemed small. And I used to find them so smart because they spoke good Washichu. Oh, they can yap and yap and yap. And they're still like that. When we meet up with Washichus, they like to talk and talk, sometimes for nothing. But at that time, it's hard for me to say this, but I envied them. I used to think, I wish I was like them, where I can talk good English and, be accepted in what is happening. I can I can become something. So I was ashamed to be a Dakota person. And this is the first time I'm talking about this because even just to talk about it, it's imashticha. I'm very ashamed to say this, but, that's how I felt at that time. And so many things happen. So when my daughter was born, I didn't want her to be like how I grew up. I want her to succeed in school, to be able to read a book and talk about it, or make a good report out of a book. They're called book reports. So I wanted her to succeed, and I did. I taught her how to read at an early age because my career at that time was being a teacher, so it was easy for me to also teach her in my home, and she learned a lot of things, and she succeeded and graduated, and that's how I did things with her. But now I regret that because now she wants to know Dakota. A few years back, she asked me, she said, "How come you didn't teach me Dakota?" She said, "Idiot, you can talk Dakota. You teach it at school." What can I say? I never expected her to, question me like that. So I told her, I thought, well, I'll just tell her. So I told her, what I went through and how I didn't want her to go through of, what I went through, especially in school and high school. So, so she took that, and she's doing her best right now to speak Dakota, which is good, and I want her to be able to speak that and to know her history. I want her to know some of the things that we do in our Dakota and traditional ways, which she does, she knows, but I always explain why we do things a certain way. So she knows those things. So in saying that, yesterday I talked about, settings. Iapi, putting out a setting for our loved ones that have gone on. And there is certain ways that you do it. You have to be about 4 days before, because Flower Day comes every year, and we know when it's going to happen. So 4 days prior, you make yourself to be of good mind, to be happy, and not to be chazé, not to be upset or to be angry or mad at anything. Smudge yourself every day leading up to that day. Say prayers, what you need to buy, you pray about those. And then when that day comes, you have all what you need to cook. So the first thing you do before you start cooking is you make that smudge early in the morning. Well, before or when the sun comes up. You make that smudge, pray that you would have a good day, that things will work out. Make your prayer come from the heart, so as you'll spend that day, with good relatives, to feed the relatives that have gone on. You want them to be happy, so you have to be happy. So you do that, for them. You do it for yourself, and you do it for your loved ones that have gone on. So after saying that prayer, and then you smudge the things that you are going to be using, like the pots, spoons, whatever that you're going to use. And then you start cooking, start making your soup, your bannock, whatever that you need to put on your setting. A long time ago, when we were younger, because, like there was 6 of us girls, she always told us that if you are on your time, she said, don't touch the food. You let the other girls do it. So that's how, we were taught. But now, like as I got to be a mother and do these things, before when my daughter was still small, I'll start, doing those things on my own. I remembered how to smudge everything. But nowadays, it's it kind of took a different twist, I guess, different way. Because, again, a lot of our ways, our Dakota ways, especially the women roles, were not exercised or were taught. So sometimes, it's confusing for the young girls. They want to put out settings. But I often wonder, do we really know what we're doing? What these foods are, who they are for, how we prepare them? Did we do them properly? Did we pray? Did we smudge? These are the things, you have to keep in mind. When you, my mom used to tell us that if you are with bad thoughts, or, you don't have a good heart, or, being upset over something, or even, having a hangover, she said, you don't touch anything. She said, because if you do cooking like that, they're not going to come. She said they'll stay away because of your attitude, how you are. That's why, we always have to be of good mind, have good thoughts. So, and I remember, like that every year, I've done it for many years, and I still think about that, to stay happy, don't be getting mad, do what you can. You don't have to have everything, just put out what you need to put out, It doesn't have to be elaborate, You don't have to compete with the other person, what they're putting out, just as long as they have the basic food, the tado, the meat, and, we have the bado, tipsana sometimes, wheatka is eggs, the bado is potatoes, Iapi, the fry bread, or the bannock. As long as we have wahampi, wojapi, the pudding could be rice and raisin pudding or Saskatoon pudding. Wahampi is soup, any kind of soup. As long as we have those basics, and of course the wakpe and the mani. Wakpe, tea. Maning, it's water. As long as we have those basics, that's good. Because that's what they come for. They don't come for the canned foods or pop. one time I was told by my mentor a few years back, he passed on already. He said, when you put out pop, if you're going to put out pop, don't open it. Keep the lid closed. Because when they take it up there, when they come and they take it, it turns to syrup. So don't open it. You can put it, amongst your setting, he said, but don't open it. And with the canned stuff, he said, don't put out any canned stuff. Because what are they going to do with it? So I always remember things like that. When you put out things like this, the crackers, make sure you open them. Because if you don't, they can't eat it. So things like that, I do, what people have shared, and I follow it. So it's very, to do a setting, like it's not hard, but you just have to remember to be of good mind and to be happy, to be humble. The important thing is to humble yourself on that day, because Hanaija, the ones that are out there, when they are called upon to come and eat, they would come, happily. And one of the things that, again, this is my dad, my late father, told us that when you say that you are going to feed at a certain time, like maybe 12 o'clock, make sure you do it at that time. Because if you say it, like now beforehand, they heard you. They'll start getting ready to come at 12 o'clock. And then, you end up doing it a couple hours later. They're going to wait that long. So don't let them wait. When you say you're going to do it at 12 o'clock, you do it at 12 o'clock, not later. So these were the strict instructions that he had, given us, to start preparing ahead of time, to set it out. That when we have our flower day up here, like it's always, somebody will announce, it's going to be lunchtime pretty soon. Start, preparing your food now to set it out. That's good. But don't prolong it, because we don't want to keep them waiting. And another thing that we were told is when you call upon them to come and eat, take the food that you have set out. You always have to tell them to go back again. Go back to that makochi washte ikta hadapta. Go back to that land, that holy land, and don't look back. Hakik dishnemani, don't look back when you go. So these are some of the things that we were told. So what I do by my setting, I pray, and then when if I give them a few minutes to take the food. So and then, I always tell them to go back. Hakik dishedamo. I always make sure that I say that. Not to look back. But so these are some of the things that we still do here in Wipazakoakpa. we have, a few cemeteries here in Sioux Valley. We have the two main ones, the Catholic one and the Anglican one, where a lot of them, are laying, laying in rest. And then we have other ones, family cemeteries. They have their own dates too, to have their flower day. So, it's and as like I told you before, my dad said he always seen that happen. It was always there. So, we have to keep it going, but we have to show our children to show them in a good way what to do, to have good thoughts when they're doing these things, when they're cooking and when they're setting it out. And most of all, for kids not to be running around, to stay close to where you are. Because naija, as what they say, ihinonach was ichachtakikte, they might come upon one of the unseen relatives and something might happen. Even at funerals too, they tell us that. Don't take your children. If you're going to take them, keep them close. Don't let them run around. You have to keep them safe. We have to keep our children safe. So with that, these are some of the things I wanted to share. And I always thank my late parents, my mother, my dad, for the things that they have taught us. And I do my best to send these messages out to other people in the community that are listening. It's not, I'm honest, I don't make anything up. I learn from experience, so if I feel that I need to share, I share. I don't want to keep anything for myself, because how would people know if I keep things to myself? So I always do what I can to put it out there, so people will do what they need to do in a good way. Yeah, so I just want to share a little bit about my late father. My late father was a World War II veteran. He fought in the front lines. Before he went, he spent a lot of time with his grandfather. His grandfather was like a medicine man or a healer or whatever, they're called. And he worked with the wolves. So all of his children, all of his grandchildren, they all had names that had reference to the wolf. So my dad spent a lot of time with him. And before he went to war, he didn't want him to go, but he was already enlisted or was called upon to go. So he, didn't really have a choice, I guess. So him and his younger brother went. Took them 2 weeks. They went for training in Ontario, Trenton, Ontario, I believe. And then from there they went to Nova Scotia, and they got on a boat, and they traveled 2 weeks on the ocean, and they got to Liverpool. And from there, the men that he had went with from Sioux Valley, even his brother, they all got separated and put into different units. So they never really got to see each other while they were overseas, and they went all over the place, to fight against the Germans at that time. Iapi, they went to Belgium, they went to Holland, Italy, France. At the end of his life, my father called all his children together. About 10 days before he passed on, he told us some of the stories that he came upon, and but I'm not going to share those stories because it's kind of hard. I'll probably end up crying, but he shared a lot of stories. So, I'll just leave those stories for now until later on, maybe, if I'm able to, I can share some. But when he came home, they celebrated them. They all didn't come home at once. They came back on a boat again, but this time they went to New York. They got off in New York, and from there they got on a train up to Toronto, and from Toronto to Winnipeg. And that's when he got home. He was discharged in 1943, I believe. I have the discharge papers at home. So he was honored when he got home. Not right away, but a few months went by, and he was honored with a song of his own. A song was made for him. And a lot of our soldiers, World War II soldiers that came home, they were given a song. The songs were made for them. And after that, we'll hear them every Remembrance Day. And that's one of the things my dad told us. Tuhade Edwaushnika, he said, when I'm gone, he said, always remember me on Remembrance Day. He said, not on November 8th, but on November 11th. He went with November 11th because, it was that day, I guess, for World War I veterans when that war ended, the 11th hour, 11th month. So he believed in that, so he applied that, to himself, that he wanted to be remembered on November 11th. So we always did, we made sure that his song was sung during that time, and to raise the flag. And he didn't believe in a Canadian flag. It was the Union Jack. He said he didn't fight under the Canadian flag. He fought under the Union Jack. So that's what he wanted to be buried with, too. He said, don't cover me up with a Canadian flag. He said use the Union Jack. So we went with his wishes, and that's what we did. We didn't dare cover him with a Canadian flag because we were teasing each other. He might get mad and come after us. But that's what we respected his wishes in that way. So later on, they wanted to honor him with awapaha, and he said no. He said, "De taku te chika edwai." He said, "Wichota had kchizab had oape." He said, "I fought in a war." They were going to give him a war bonnet, but he refused because he had blood on his hands. He said, "Tue hechawapaha yuhekaha." They are to be of good standing, to be a good person. When somebody owns a war bonnet, they have to have, be respectful, be humble, and it has to be earned. He said, "Hanamish wachishnido," he said, all because he went to war and had blood on his hands. And I thought at that time, that's what you call a humble person. That's what you call a hero. He refused. He refused to be recognized as a very top person because he said he wasn't. He said, he said. He said, "I'm just going to be an ordinary man till the day I die." So that's how he treated himself. Tahan wana, so many people are given war bonnets. People that don't deserve it. People that didn't earn it. You see, and that's what gets me upset. Why? What did they do to have that war bonnet? What great deed did they do? Just because maybe they were in leadership that they get that. They're a top leader here in Manitoba and they get a war bonnet. No, it isn't that. You have to look at that person, the background of that person, how that person grew up, to be of good standing, to have that humbleness, to be respected by everyone, to be good to everybody, to be gentle, to be kind, especially with words, to not to be abusing towards the women, girls, to be free from alcohol. Hana, that's what, that's how you earned. It's only for Dakota people that can earn those things. But now, it seems everybody has that, a war bonnet, standing up there, Parliament Hill, wearing those. It kind of, like I don't know, it's kind of shameful. Do they really need to be wearing those? Are they showing off? But, and these are some of the things, my dad is a very good example. Him and his brother, they both refused to have a war bonnet or even to have a single eagle feather. Wamdi wia kaghena ku wichak uptegas chimshne. They never owned an eagle feather. Now that's what you call a humble person. He knew deep down that he didn't deserve these things. But he didn't go around saying it. He told us. He told it to us, hoping maybe that we can pass it on. Or maybe he wants to just stay within us. But, I wanted to share this because, it's kind of getting ridiculous with the war bonus, how it's being handled, given to everybody. That's not good. That's not right. It shouldn't be like that, but it's happening. And, I hope people out there, in YouTube world, I hope you're listening. And I hope you share it to others, that the wapaha, the war bonnet, belongs to the Dakota people, and we want to keep it how it is supposed to be, not to be showing it off. It's a very respectful thing. It's of high honor. Even a single eagle feather is of high honor. So remember that, and please, share these stories. You'll be doing something good for yourself. It was hard to say these things, but I wanted to say them. I didn't want to carry it around anymore. I just released it so as I can walk lighter. And I hate to do it, Iapi.